coal mines in Kentucky is on the decline and has been for several years. The state's Division of Mine Safety data shows in 2008 there were 625 licensed mines, including the one in Martin County.
Right now, there are just 129 in the state. WKYT's Julia Sandor talked to one expert in mining about what happens when abandoned mines are closed.
I coined a term one time in an article I wrote called "a mine is a terrible thing to waste."
Steve Gardner says the country was built on the backs of coal miners. But with coal mines on the decline, there can still be a purpose for the rich land.
If you look at the recent Kentucky initiatives, which I think they're calling higher ground, the housing developments that have been announced in recent months, they're all on reclaimed mine sites.
Whether it be for new housing, recreation, or industrial developments, these old mine sites can be reclaimed and become beneficial to the coal communities.
Kentucky received $74 million in infrastructure money to put toward reclaiming old mine sites, and those would be the sites that were mined prior to passage of SMCRA in 1977.
That federal law regulates the environmental effects of coal mining across the U.S. In eastern Kentucky, Gardner says that they face challenges when it comes to the mountains and terrains, but they continue to find new ways to use the sites.
None of them have really come to fruition yet, but there are a number being planned. And that's, in my opinion, a great use for those areas.
Gardner has worked around the mining and engineering industry since 1975 and says while mining has a reputation of being unsafe, over the years they've learned to make it safer.
Well, there have been so many changes, it's hard to focus on any one.
In Lexington, Julia Sandor, WKYT.